Hi, Facebook. I am going live, and yeah, I just wanted to come on and just update a little bit about things that have been going on in my life and share a few stories with you guys. So, I first wanted to just say thank you so much to everybody who has been praying for me, who sent a message of encouragement or just commented. It just meant so much to me. Just had a really hard week, and I will kind of get into that a little bit later in the Facebook Live, but just thank you so much to everyone who so kindly just, gave me that encouragement in prayer. I feel like this theme of hearing God's voice is just something that the Lord has been teaching me this year, and so He brought to mind a couple things, stories that I wanted to share. Just about how I hear from Him, and just some cool ways that He's shown up in my life. And so I guess I'll just start by sharing the first story. So one of the ways I'm realizing that God talks to us is that if He brings somebody to your mind, it doesn't even have to be somebody maybe you haven't talked to in a long time, but if you're just kind of thinking about somebody, that can oftentimes mean that God wants you to reach out to them or pray for them. And I have a story about that. Back when I was living in Seattle, I was part of a community group through church, and I had moved away I started travel nursing. I think I was back, and I was living on the east side, and so I wasn't always going over to Seattle, but I was over there for the day, and I had an early morning appointment, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to spend a little more time over in Seattle, and what should I do to kill my time? And I was just kind of thinking, and then I just started thinking about my friend Sally, who was in my community group, and I was like, that's interesting. I should reach out to her and see if maybe I can visit her. It's just kind of a last minute thing, but why not? So I called her and I was like, hey, this is just like totally random, but I'm in the area. Can I stop by and see you and visit? And she was like, sure, I'd love to see you, but I'm pretty busy. Just want to warn you that I'm hosting something tonight, so I'm just trying to, get things ready, clean, and just kind of like chop vegetables and, get ready. And so I was like, well, if you don't mind, like I'll come and visit you and I'll just help you. Like I'll help you prepare and we could just hang out, and I totally can go. And so I went over to her house. She was gracious, and at this time she had a newborn who was under a year, so she was really busy, and but I just went over to her house, and I was just kind of helping her, talking to her, catching up, and like just doing little things like chopping vegetables and sweeping her floor, and just I was happy to do it. And she was just like, Becca, I just want to let you know like how grateful I am that you're here right now, because I was so stressed out about hosting tonight that I was calling around last minute trying to find a housekeeper or somebody who could just come and I could just pay them for the day to help me, because I was so stressed out. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so awesome. Like God totally put you on my mind to bless you, to come and help. Like I'm happy to do it, and I get to see you. And so that's just one really cool story that sticks out in my mind of how God used me to bless my friend just by simply putting her on my heart and putting her on my mind. And just following that little thing to reach out. So I'm learning that if God puts somebody on your mind to bless, like that's oftentimes Him wanting you to do that. So I have another story that I want to share about how that happened to me too. And this is more recent. So I'm living in Phoenix right now and going to a different church. But as part of what I do is I kind of just hang out with the college ministry and just jumping right into that. And one of the things is that the leaders cook food. They cook food. So I'm kind of new, but I was just kind of getting ready to go hang out with them, and just was online and scrolling, killing some time. And I saw that one of the leaders was cooking food, and I thought to myself, that is so nice. Like that is so nice of them to do that. They are just newlyweds themselves, and since I'm kind of new to that, I'm like, I wonder how that works. Like, does the church kind of help pay for like cooking? I don't know. But I was just, this thought came to mind, like, I should really bless them, like I should just contribute. And, that little thought can come, that little doubt of, well, if somebody else is paying for that. Anyway, I just heard like, yeah, just bless them. It doesn't matter. Like, they're newlyweds. Go ahead. So as I was leaving, like, I just kind of was grabbing some cash I had thrown in my bag the day before because I went and was out at a farmer's market and you need cash to pretty much shop there. And so I had just thrown some into a bag, and as I was just kind of getting it together, running out the door, I just heard like, give all the money. And I was like, huh. And at that time it was kind of a little more authoritative, like, just give it all. And I was like, okay, sure, all right. Like, I'm learning now that if it's that little small voice, like, just to listen to that. And so it was kind of a random amount of money. But I was like, sure, I'll give it. So I went and just hung out that night with them, and it was a great evening. And I just kind of gave it to her and just said, hey, here, this is just to contribute to the food. And it turns out, so later that evening, she sent me a message. And she was like, Becca, I don't know if you know this, but my husband lost his job 2 months ago. And we've been living on my part-time job. And I was really kind of stressed out about, not stressed out, but she was like, I was kind of, purchasing this food. I was just having faith and praying, like, should I ask the church to reimburse this, or should I just have faith that God's going to provide? He's a provider. And she's like, I'm just going to choose to trust God. And that right there was just like, boom, like, of course, God was leading me to bless them. I had no idea that her husband had lost his job. I had no idea they were living on a part-time income. Like, but God knows. Like, this is what's so awesome about God, is like, he knows our story. He knows what we're going through, and he uses each of us to like be his hands and feet and to bless people. And I just thought it was so amazing. Like, and I don't even know I'm surprised anymore. I mean, of course I'm excited to be like, okay, God, I am hearing you and you're using me, and that's so awesome. Like, it's just so encouraging. So I just thought that was really neat. A neat story to share, just that, and I kind of had heard of people doing this. I was like, I kind of had heard of, like, I don't know if anyone's heard of Beth Moore, but she'd talk about these awesome things where God's like, you need to take this amount of money and drive across town to this bus stop, and I want you to give it to somebody, and she just does it and like miraculously blesses and has these awesome stories. And I'm like, how do people do this? Like, I want to be one of those people. And slowly but surely, like, just seeking after the Lord and seeking after his voice and what he's doing, like, he is using me. And so it's really exciting. And I just told the Lord, like, okay, I'm still trying to step out of my comfort zone. I'm not necessarily one to just jump on and do Facebook Lives, but I was like, if you're going to give me some stories, like, God, if you're going to be doing this stuff in my life, like, I want to share it, because it encourages me. I hope it encourages you guys too. So I just thought that was really neat. And, so another thing I wanted to talk about before my third kind of cool story, just to kind of go in order, is just, I feel like God is just kind of wanting me to just be honest with my testimony and just a little honest with my story. For those of you who don't know, I have recorded a little bit of my testimony and put it on YouTube. So if you look up Becca Laughlin, you'll see my story. I did it in 4 parts, and that just kind of gives the background of my story. But I have struggled with anxiety and depression for a long time, like probably starting as a kid, like middle school, high school. And I did spend quite a bit of time, probably over 10 years of my life. I did take prescription antidepressants just to kind of help with depression, to help with anxiety, and just yeah, I won't go into all the story, but I have not been on any medication for probably over six or 7 years now, or maybe there's a brief time in there, but pretty much for the most part I haven't, just because I didn't always like the way it made me feel. Like, I felt like it did help, but I felt like I couldn't feel happy feelings too. It's kind of weird. Any of you who maybe have been on them or had that experience might know that it just kind of dulls all your emotions. And I was like, I think I just, want to feel my emotions. So I do. I get excited. I have high highs and I feel excited, but I can also get into funks and get low. And I think a lot of that is just normal life, but I think some of that can be spiritual too. So kind of what happened is I went out with someone from church, and we kind of just went on what's called just street preaching, I guess, and we went out to the park, and I was just praying for people, and we were just kind of trying to share the love of God with people, and they kind of were warning me. They're like, sometimes you can experience some retaliation from that spiritually, like the enemy is not happy when you go out and pray for people, or when you want to go out and share the love of God, like you're going to probably experience some retaliation from that. And I was like, okay, and I experienced it big time. I mean, we prayed, but I got hit really hard. Like, I got attacked in my sleep with just some things, and then just got hit. The enemy knows exactly where to poke, and he knows exactly what to bring up to bring you low. And so I just went through that. And it was so much stronger than I usually experience. And I was like, okay, something's going on. And that's when I was reaching out for prayer, because I was just like, I should have known, like, hello, part of this is spiritual, but I was like so freaked out, like, and having such a hard time, and my thoughts just got so negative. I actually drove over to just like an emergency clinic just to see, like, maybe I need a prescription again, like, what's going on? And it just so happens that I looked it up online. I knew when it was closing, and when I went, it was like an hour and 15 minutes before they were closing, and they're like, oh, we're closing right now. And I was like, oh, okay, I thought you were open for another hour. But I think it was just a God thing where he was like, no, I don't want you to run and get medication, like, no. So I think it worked out the way it needed to, because I ended up just getting prayer that night. I had a woman pray with me for about 30 minutes, and it broke. Like, I didn't have that heaviness. I didn't have that low lows anymore. So I know this time it was spiritual. And I don't know if anybody's kind of going to be watching this where they're like, I don't believe that. Like, and I don't want to like get into any debates. I'm just sharing my experience. I think a lot of what I've experienced has been spiritual. I don't think all of it. Like, I definitely think I was thankful for medication in the times I had it. But yeah, so this time I think the Lord was just like, no. And when I got prayer, like it left. Like, I wasn't feeling that low. And so I was like, okay, I just got to press through this. Like, I've got to really get serious about like seeking the Lord and praying and getting prayed over, because it can be humbling. Like, I'm in a pissed off mood. I am negative. I am in the pit, and I don't want to even talk to anybody, but just to be humble and go and get prayer. Like, it's so powerful, and that really does break that stuff off. So I definitely, and there's a verse in the Bible, and I'm sorry I don't have it prepared, but it talks about, and I posted it to my Facebook earlier this week, just about how like the righteous can fall 1,000 times, but the Lord will pull you up each time. And that has totally been my experience, because I'll get down, but like when I get prayer, like he brings you up. And so that's just been my trial. And I think through this, the Lord is just teaching me how to fight, like how to fight those thoughts, how to fight those negative moods, how to fight off, like not giving into them, because there's been a lot of lies I believed about myself, I believed about my family, and like the Lord is still healing that. Like, if you were to go back and listen to my testimony, there's a lot of stuff the Lord is still healing in my life personally. And this morning's message was awesome at church. It was just talking about the fruit in our lives, and sometimes we just need to be patient. If we get frustrated that, why don't I have fruit, and why isn't my life looking a certain way? And sometimes God's pruning us, and I was just like, okay, like, yeah, that's been my experience. I get kind of frustrated when it comes to my family, because I'm like, why don't we talk? Why don't I have a relationship with the majority of my family? Why does my family look this way? Why don't we just get healed? Why can't we just get it together and talk to each other? And I get so frustrated. I'm like, come on, God, I need you to just heal this and get it going. Like, and I get frustrated and I get impatient. But this morning's message was like, fruit takes time to grow, ripen, and mature, and sometimes you just need to be patient, and there's seasons. So I was like, okay, that was just really good to hear, because, and I need to be honest, So a big part of when I get down, the enemy likes to just throw rejection in my face. Like, your family doesn't talk to you. These people don't talk to you. They just ignore you. They don't reach out. Like, nobody loves you. Like, no one cares. Like, all those things start going around in my head. I'm just being honest. And there's been a couple people in my life where relationships have just shifted quite dramatically due to seasons of our life. And I continued to reach out to these people and would hear no response. Like, I don't know if the guys have experienced this, but basically I would reach out to people and would never hear anything back. Like, and it wasn't just oh, I forgot. It was just kind of a pattern. Like, okay, like, I've reached out to you. And the problem with that, and just my buttons were getting pushed, is that I would go online because, I don't know, I spend way too much time online surfing social media, but I would see these people like posting things or being online too all the time, and posting immediately after someone would share something. They would just be posting and commenting, and I'm like, okay, if you guys are online all the time, like, how come you can't just send a 2-second text like, oh, hey, I got your message, or thanks for reaching out, I don't have time to talk? So that was just like eating at me, and I was like, I cannot I can't do this anymore. So when I was down this week, I got frustrated, and one of the things I'm not super good at is when I get frustrated, sometimes I make bad decisions when I'm not doing well. And so I just went through and like unfriended a handful of people that I just didn't want to see, like, commenting on things, knowing that I had continued to reach out to them and just experienced this rejection. So I was just like, okay, I need to put this boundary because it's not healthy for me. I don't know where I was going with that story, other than to say that, yeah, I think part of this morning's message was sometimes God prunes things, and I think the most important thing he said during the sermon was, when you prune fruit tree, like, you don't just cut off the bad things. Sometimes the good things can get cut off too, to produce more fruit, to produce a healthier tree. And I never thought about it before, but I was like, there's been a lot of relationships in my life that's just not been healthy, and unfortunately a lot of them are my primary family. So instead of me looking at it like, God, why aren't you just like fixing this? Like, he's pruned me back big time. Like, don't talk with my mom. I don't talk with my sisters. I have a couple relationships in my life with people who I thought were really good friends, close friends to me, that are no longer in my life anymore. And it didn't necessarily end the way I wanted to. We didn't necessarily sit down and talk about and agree upon, okay, we're just not going to be friends anymore. Like, one of them ended in a fight. We haven't reconciled. And so there's just a lot of relationships that I don't have closure. There's a lot of relationships that I don't have reconciliation, and that just tears me up because I want to be a peacemaker. I want everything to be fixed. I want it to be fixed yesterday, and I don't want to wait. Like, I do try very hard to, at least I think I do. So that's been hard. But I think the Lord is just, he says he uses things that are bad, or things that are meant for bad, he will turn it around and use it for good. So while I do think there's just been some attack of rejection in my life from a very young age on, I think the Lord is just kind of like teaching me to just that it's not affecting me as much, like to not rely so much on people, like in relationships, and get so bummed out when maybe they're not going well, because it says that, we're supposed to put our hope in the Lord. He's the only one that won't let us down or disappoint us, or, he says man will fail us. We're human. We are sinful. We make mistakes, and we hurt each other. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's still work in progress, and that story is still ongoing, and I pray for reconciliation in my family and my friendships. But right now I feel really pruned back. I was like, that painted a picture. I was like, yep, I've been pruned back in a big way in the former relationship. So I just want to turn around and encourage you guys that if the Lord is like taking something out of your life, because I hung on bitterly. I was like, nope, you're not taking it away. I'm going to make it work in my own strength. And that backfired. It's backfired quite a bit. So I was like, okay, Yeah, so sometimes he's going to take seemingly good things, pruning out of your life too, to produce good fruit, to make it a healthier tree. And I was like, yeah, okay, I received that because I grew up in a lot of unhealthy, and God is turning things around and I am becoming more healthy, thank God. It is a process though, and so just to be patient with myself, and so hopefully you guys can take that too, to be patient with yourself. And what God's doing in your life, and it is a process. So, coming to the third story, God is so gracious. So in my temper tantrum and me unfriending people and me being in a bad mood and negative and after getting prayed for and you guys praying for me, thank you so much. Like coming out of that, feeling better, God still used me in kind of a really cool way. So, I went out this weekend on Friday with some people from church down to do some also street ministry with the homeless. And so we went near one of the homeless shelters downtown, but we weren't actually in the shelter. We were kind of outside the shelter where the people don't have shelter beds. They just kind of are sleeping on the street. And we got to serve them. It was really eye-opening and awesome experience. And I really just was kind of at the end of the night looking over at the fence, and I saw this older lady sitting at the fence, and I was just like, she was all alone, and I don't know, my heart was just like, I want to go talk to her. I want to go give something to her. Actually, it started out with, I feel like I'm supposed to go give her my apple. Like I had just a little bit of snack with me, and I was walking over and I was like, this seems weird to offer her an apple because I don't think she has any teeth. And that's exactly what she said. I was like, I just wanted to see if you wanted this. And she's like, oh, honey, I can't. I don't have any teeth. I was like, that's... Anyway, I ended up talking with her. For quite a bit. She was just such a lovely woman. She was in her 60s, and this is kind of a cool story. So she's like, yeah, I just came down from Washington State a month ago, and she says she's from Tacoma, and the hat I was wearing said Tacoma Rainiers, and I was like, look at my hat. And so we just got to talking. She just kind of lit up and opened up, and she just started sharing her story, and she told us she was a writer. Like she had all these ideas for books, and she just was so sweet. Like we ended up, a couple of us came over and we just kind of sat around her and listened to her talk and just share. And we were just visiting with her. She was so sweet. And she was telling us her book ideas. She's like, I have a title for a book and a storyline. And she said, the title of my book is going to be From Trash to Treasure. And she told us, she went on and kind of described the story, and it was awesome. And she had other book ideas, and she was just kind of sharing them. And she also read us a poem that she wrote. She's like, got out her little flip phone, and she was like, can I read you guys my poem? And she read us the poem. She's like, yeah, I was just kind of looking up at the stars, and I wrote this poem, and it was just beautiful. And she was just so precious. And she was just saying like, that's how people see me. People see us on the street. They look at us like trash. And I was just like, no, like you are so valuable and so precious. And so we just got to visit with her, and I offered her my salad, and she's like, no. And then I just couldn't. I just was like, I just want to give you things. Like, I just want to give you everything I have. And so I had like this little shirt tied around, flannel shirt tied around my waist, and I just took it off and I gave it to her. And so, yeah, my heart just went out to just people on the street, and not only people on the street, but senior citizens, like really not easy. And so one of the volunteer organizations through my church meet on once a month on Saturdays, and so they were going back to it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a resource center for older people who are homeless. They give them help and resources. So we went and kind of volunteered there the next day, and she was there. I didn't see her, but my friend was like, she's wearing your shirt. And that made me really happy. I didn't get to talk to her, but just kind of a cool thing that happened that was like coincidence. Like, I don't believe in coincidences, but something really neat happened. So I went out to lunch with some people from church after church, and then after we were done with lunch, I just kind of walked down the street to this antique shop. I was just kind of browsing through stuff. They had vintage clothes. I was like, this is really cool. And they had this kids books section. And so I went over and I pulled out like the first book I pulled out, like, and I looked at it. The title of that book said From Trash to Treasure. And it was the title of her book she had. And I was like, God, and it's just one of those things that like jumped off the page to me. And I was just like, yeah, that's a God moment. It just was just like, I don't know. It just made me so happy to know that, yeah, I feel like God really was kind of directing this weekend, like, go talk to her, and then just confirming it with getting to see the title of that book. And it was a kid's book. Like, that's just the thing. Like, God can talk to us through anything. And I will post a picture after I'm done posting this video. I'm going to post a picture of this kid's book that has her title, From Trash to Treasure. And she was just so sweet. So I was just really encouraged that even after my bad mood, even after my temper tantrum, that God still used me to hopefully bless and being able to pray for others. And he's just so good, you guys. Like, he's just so good. He's so good to us. And he wants to bless us, and he's for us. And that's the thing I'm learning. So if you have thoughts that are like, I really want to do something nice for that person, or I want to bless that person, that oftentimes is God wanting to do that through us. Like, he wants to use us. He wants to be part of that joy we feel when we like get to experience what he's doing, just like in all the stories I shared with you guys. So just maybe so that's just what I'm learning, like to pay attention to those positive things, because I'm learning that if it's not good, it's not from God. Like, those negative things are not from him, and those thoughts. So and there's that verse, it's like, take every thought captive, and I'm learning how to do that. So I just wish somebody had taught me this when I was younger. It could have saved me a lot of trouble, a lot of grief, and just learning how to discern those things. So I really hope this blessed you guys. I hope me sharing the stories encouraged you in some way of just the awesome ways that God moves. And so be on the lookout for those little still small voices, those little nudges, those little things of, oh, I could do something nice for somebody. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing that all the time, because you all are so awesome. But if there's anything you guys want prayer for, just message me or post below. I love you guys. I hope you're having a great Sunday. And if I have more stories, I'm sure I'll share them. So thanks for listening. Bye.